Yeah.
Well, turning to another pretty hot topic, and that is race and equity that has dominated news cycles lately. The county has announced a new effort to address racial equity and disparity in the community. What can you tell us about this venture?
I'll turn it over to you in a minute, Takis, but people are thinking this is new. In a way, it's new, but you remember Christian Dorsey, who was our chair last year, brought forward as his focus area equity, and we adopted an equity resolution. And we have actually been setting out fulfilling all of the items that we said we were going to do with that equity resolution. So this particular step is a new step, but the whole effort is not new at all. We began in last year, particularly focusing on our organization with a Government Alliance for Race and Equity. That's through the Council of Governments. Actually, all of the surrounding jurisdictions have been sort of focusing on that with their employees. And that has really taken off then for a while and was really getting started when the pandemic hit. But I will say that helped give a foundation for, one of the things that obviously tripped this for everybody nationwide was the horrible murder of George Floyd. And the upset and the concern and just a sense that we've got to fix this, and which is great. So one of the things that we have just launched, as you mentioned, was a dialogues, and that's an effort to bring the community together and have conversations, and not just. One of the things about racial discussions, particularly, they can be difficult. So you tend to talk with people who think like you do. You don't tend to get into a situation where you're really talking with people who come from a different place. Sometimes when that happens, people just yell at each other, and that's not helpful. So we're working to try and help the whole community have these conversations and get it up to a certain level where then we can really start to examine these issues and deal with it. I say we're trying to move from systemic racism to systemic equity as a county and as a government. And so, Takis, I'm sorry, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, absolutely. It is absolutely true that Arlington County, under the leadership of Christian Dorsey, adopted this resolution. This resolution came already after a very deep and profound dialogue about the systemic, the structural issues and liabilities we have in this field, in lack of equity and of what kind of impacts racism, institutionalized systemic racism has had in all parts of Arlington's life, from zoning issues, housing issues, employment issues, wealth differences, health differences. We see that all percolating right now during the COVID, in this COVID summer. The pandemic has really revealed a lot of things, a lot of disparities that we already knew about, and of course the precipitating factor of George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis and several other episodes we had this year, and the ongoing Black Lives Matter protests, and that puts us in a position where everybody can engage and should engage. So the dialogues are one of many areas where citizens can engage. Actually, we are recording that today, which is the 22nd of October, Thursday. I believe the first one is already offered in October, 24th, this Saturday. So we warmly approach everybody to go online, the Arlington County website. They will see that pretty fast where it is and sign on to participate in these dialogues. In addition, I have to say there are all other. We have been, every single board meeting that I have participated, all three of them have been dealing with this issue. The issue is not only pro forma present in our action, is actually substantially present in every single board meeting, and I believe in everyday life, in government's everyday life. This is important to know and important to take into account. We have talked about the symbols and the logo of Arlington County, the desire to retire that. We've talked about the names of certain streets, of certain places, public places. All this is right now subject to these dialogues, and this is the first point of engagement for citizens coming up
Yep. And I did.
It's been an-
You weren't there in January, but I know you know. Obviously, I carried forward that same focus area for the board this year, and I had three. Equity, innovation, and resilience. And little did I know that's kind of basically all we're doing. That's all we've been
It's a
doing.
little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah,
And
a little bit. But I will add.
highlight our partner in this, the challenging racism. You
Exactly.
said something about that.
I was going to
Now,
talk about that. Yeah. Can I just
these dialogues? Now, do we expect these dialogues to eventually lead to actionable items? And then on a related note, how do these discussions, these dialogues, mesh with the county's review of police policies? Is that a kind of a parallel street?
It's all coming together, and it's all getting people kind of on a level set on the language we use and what we talk about, and it's kind of being able to understand each other's perspectives. Challenging Racism is a local nonprofit that has been doing this for, I think, at least 20 years. I mean, I worked with them when I was on the school board, and my focus on the school board was equity and education. That was the one area you didn't mention, Takis, but it really permeates everything we do. And they will be coming up with the Challenging Racism folks. We're having the conversations with citizens. Then we're going to move to groups, and they're going to develop a toolbox for these conversations that you can anybody who wants to have a conversation like this can take it. So we have similar questions to ask and a similar way to move forward. As I said at the outset, I think we all know this is a difficult issue, and people can use a little support in how to handle it and have these conversations. So they're developing a toolbox from these conversations. We're going to be working with larger groups and then getting on and continuing it and having those larger groups span out themselves and sort of train the trainer kind of idea. We got a good partner with Amazon. Amazon is helping to fund this. They are also participating. Now that was kind of part of the deal. When we talked to them, we would love to have you join us, but we really want you to participate as well. I want to mention the questionnaire that we've got, and that is online too. And we really encourage people to take this questionnaire. We're trying to get a baseline sense of where people are. And as I've said, I mean, people listening, there may be some people who just think systemic racism. What is that? Racism, that's not a big problem here, not in Arlington. That's fine. We want to hear from you because we want to get the gamut of ideas. And then one more thing, when we adopted that resolution, there were 4 questions. So for anything that we do, you should ask these questions. One is who benefits? The next one is who's burdened by this decision? The next one is who's missing? And how do we know? And Samia Bird, our new chief racism equity officer, which is she came out of that resolution as well. She added another question, a 5th question, which is what did we do? So in answering that question, Cara, we have plans on what we're going to do, but we're going to make sure and hold ourselves accountable because we've got to be able to answer that question.
All right. Well, I'm sure these dialogues are going to be fascinating as they do.
Yeah. Is definitely relevant to this conversation as well. So this is another process that is ongoing. Will be rendering results all very actionable. I'm pretty confident that they will be very actionable by the end of the year or a little bit after the New Year's. But this is an ongoing process that
your chair ends up this year. Your chair finishes this year. She wants them actionable before she's done. Just saying. I've talked to the manager, and that's on the, what we're going to do about the logos and the symbols, at least getting to a process. And I believe the police policy group, procedures group that's reviewing that, I think they're going to have a report out as well before the end of the year, I believe. And that will inform the search for the police chief.
Okay, well, we are going to take a short break now. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the neighborhood's form-based code on Columbia Pike and what that means for affordable housing. We'll be right back.